It started with trees. It ended with trees. You know, he's talking about his legacy. He's talking about his mortality. And then it's like deep thoughts with Bill Shatner.
You sure you just didn't want to get one last captain's log in there?
Hi, I'm Teresa. Welcome to Cocoon Cast, where we deep dive into movies and discuss all things cinema.
Hi, I'm Rebecca. Today we will be discussing the new documentary about William Shatner entitled You Can Call Me Bill.
Rebecca, we also have some spooky Hollywood news.
The ghost of the most is back.
Let's get started.
William Shatner has been in the business of entertaining people his entire life. Whether that's on the silver screen, or most notably, the small screen, he'll find his way to an audience. But when William, or as he preferred to be known as, Bill, journeys to space for the first time not on a soundstage, he feels profoundly changed. Can Bill's new perspective be reconciled with the person he was, or will it be the only part of him that remains?
Rebecca, Bill, William Shatner has a documentary. We just saw it.
I was interested to see this documentary because I can't remember a time I haven't grown up with William Shatner. I've seen most every Star Trek episode at least once, the movies twice, and you introduced him to me in The Twilight Zone, so I get to see both sides of William Shatner. Plus, over the years, I've read a couple of his biographies.
Oh, you've read the books. I've never read the books. I didn't even know he had books.
He has a couple books that I've read.
I crack up because this documentary, last count, playing in 464 theaters nationwide. Early release. We had to kind of hunt for this. This was only playing in one theater nearby, and it was only supposed to be the first day was supposed to be like Q&A. We saw it on the second day. We missed the Q&A, the live Q&A. My understanding the theater was packed. Lots of people wanted to see this movie, and I cracked up because, like you said, you've seen the Star Trek movies, shows, everything, you in the box. I remember William Shatner from Twilight Zone when I was a kid. My brother and I, we watched the original Star Trek, when the spaceship would come by and go whoosh, we'd run across the screen and go, ah! But I admit, I am not the biggest William Shatner fan, but I really wanted to see this. He went into space. He was 90. And he has this whole different perspective, and he really was excited about talking about this.
You sure you just didn't want to get one last captain's log in there?
I think there may be something to this. He really wanted to do this. But like you said, he has been everywhere. I remember in the 80s, he was in TJ Hooker with Heather Locklear. I never watched that one, but the box like Boston Legal. I know when you were a little bit older, you were watching that.
Denny Crane.
What's my name?
Denny Crane?
Like you mean it.
Denny Crane.
What's my name?
Denny Crane!
Yeah, it really was the whole Denny Crane thing. But he's done movies, and he was doing little theatrical performances. He's 93. He has been there. Like you said, you remember him most of your life. I was looking it up, and he was born in 31. And I remember you and I were talking about age. So for perspective, my dad was born in 1935. So had my dad been living, my dad would just be a few years younger than him. That just is mind-blowing to me.
I think one of the things this film did really well was it highlighted the different facets of Shatner's career. It's so easy to focus on his Western career. It's so easy to focus on his TV drama career. It's incredibly easy to focus on his Star Trek career.
Correct, because that's what he's most known for. And I really respect that about him, that he wanted to talk to the audience or the people that have really, like you said, grown up with him, really like him. And cognitively, I laugh, right? Because he's 93. He is very sharp and in tune with what's going on. There's no question in my mind.
I think some of that is because it's easy to kind of mimic Shatner's perceived speaking pattern in popular cultures.
There's someone on the way. Something. I'm sorry, what were you saying?
So you start to think, oh, he's going downhill. But he shows himself as a complete person through this documentary. He kind of gives you a hint of who he's become over the years, but also what's driving him now. And that was the main question I was asking myself when we were going to see this is, who's William Shatner at the core of everything?
Yes, that is true. I also think anytime you see a documentary, and that was kind of my question, is there an audience for a movie only about William Shatner? And really, it really was him sitting there talking, having conversation. It wasn't a dialogue. It was little clips and things. But it was also for me. Would I be interested in hearing enough about William Shatner and only William Shatner? The movie was reasonably short, though. It was like an hour and a half, hour and 34 minutes. So it wasn't like a 5-hour experience of his life.
It definitely felt a lot longer than it was to me.
Surprisingly, it did to me too. And I like documentaries, so it's not, oh, well, it's not the blockbuster, things aren't blowing up and everything. And there was some different media pieces, right? Clips, photographs, him talking, him sitting in a chair, the chair by itself, his voice, performance at the Kennedy Center, him up in space, you get little snapshots. So there was a lot of action that was happening.
One of the things I did enjoy about this movie was I wasn't bored for long stretches of time. There was points in the movie where I'm just like, could you move a little faster? But I wasn't like leaning off to the chair going, move, please, just move, get through the segment. I was still interested in what he had to say, even though I was just starting to feel kind of the weight of what he was saying.
You had made a comment, I don't know if you recall, about when he would say something. Do you remember this?
He'd say the same thing like 3 times, but then he'd flip the words around so it sounded like he was saying something new.
Yes, I actually laughed at that too, because it wasn't like double speak. I don't think he was like trying to deceive the audience, but it felt as if it was trying to be deep, which I understand, right? This is, some of this existential things that he's considering for his life. But I think that detracted from the movie, honestly, and the order it went, because at first he was talking about a little bit about his childhood, and then he was talking about his parents a little tiny bit. Then he was in space, and then he was, on a horse, and he was here. It didn't feel chronological.
Do you think the movie would have been more cohesive if it was chronological? It sounds like you're trying to reconcile all these different parts and try to fuse them into one story.
Well, because it's about one person, right? And only him, truly. There was just a little snippet. It's interesting. And I don't know, maybe, his biographies or the stories that he's written follow that a little bit better. It started with trees. It ended with trees. He's talking about his legacy. He's talking about his mortality. And I understand that maybe there's no definitive answer, but I don't know. It was just kind of weird because it was, okay, we're hearing about his life and hearing about this. And then it's like deep thoughts with Bill Shatner. And I respect that. But to me, it felt disjointed. And like you said, somehow I want to put some order around some kind of a logical piece, even though, yes, he was showing earlier, like Twilight Zone, but it was just snippet, no comment, snippet, no comment. And then all of this, I want to be a tree and I want to go back to the earth. And he talked about his love of horses. And my understanding, that's a huge, huge piece in his life. I would have loved to have heard more than just a few things about that.
I feel like the snippets did a lot of talking, which I was really impressed with the choices of snippets that they chose to use and how the editing was able to bridge what he was saying in the now and take his acting from the then. Mm-hmm. But in some ways, I felt like it was almost like cheating. It was like the snippets were taken from people who created these outside situations, and he's like, oh, sounds great, let's throw this in.
I would have loved it, honestly, if other people would have shared in terms of, oh, when I was with Bill, or even his kids, or, his son-in-law, or, friends of his having comments, because as hard as it is, right? You always want people that are around you to say good and positive things about you, and it's always scary. It's like, oh, are they going to? Would they? But I think that adds dimension to it. It's like, oh, I see this person this way, and I want to introduce the world to my daughter, my best friend, my husband, my wife. I appreciate hearing other points of view versus just him in the chair.
I think that would have added a really interesting perspective, because then you would have seen the complete Shatner. This film is attempting to show us the complete Shatner.
Correct.
But I feel like there's still something missing, like he's holding back. And I would love to believe that's partially because he wants the film to focus on the here and the now of the environmental impact that humans are going through right now.
I appreciated that because, like you said, it's not just I'm a celebrity, notice everything about me that's a celebrity, although obviously that was a huge part of this. And this movie was fan sourced, right? Legion M, who is the production company, that's what they do. They allow fans to purchase stock, if you will, to promote stories about people that they love.
I think this is the first Legion M production that I've seen.
Oh, me too. I had not heard much about them prior to this, and I really did some digging to understand more. And I think, okay, who most would want this movie to come into light? Maybe William Shatner, or maybe they approached him and said, hey, we have a lot of fans that really want to hear about you. And I think that's a great thing, because I know the people that I really like and appreciate, I would put my money where my mouth is and say, hey, yeah, how can we help that happen? But it felt different than any documentary that I had seen.
I felt like I was watching two different documentaries, and in some ways I wanted them to pick a lane.
I think that's fair. I think that's totally fair. Do we have any questions from the box?
In your opinion, do you need to be a heavy-duty William Shatner fan to really enjoy this movie?
I think it's going to help a lot. There's definitely some points where this movie lulls, and you kind of need that perspective of, I'm here for this, to kind of keep going through it.
I agree. If you really like him, I always laugh because there's fans and then there's super fans. And I think the super fans, hands down, will want to see it in, as we said, very limited engagement. My understanding is they really want people to see it, which is great. I think that's a good part. I would not consider myself a super fan. Honestly, I wouldn't even consider myself a fan, but I would consider myself someone who's been impacted by William Shatner through movies, we're talking about Twilight Zone. I wanted to learn more. In fact, I was laughing because I would say you and the box are probably bigger fans than I am, especially of Star Trek and all things Star Trek. Yet I was the one saying, hey, as a team, let's take the whole Cocoon Cast team. Let's go. Because I wanted to learn more. I do find it interesting that he went to space at 90 and he was really excited. And as he said, I came back changed and different. I think that's worth hearing. Someone who has lived the life he has lived, there is something that we can learn, especially when he is reflecting on his legacy. I think that's even more important. It's not like, oh, I'm going to live to be forever, or I'm never going to die, so don't ask me questions. It's hearing that he had respect for the position that he was in and his mortality, just saying, hey, I know I'm not going to live forever. I know I'm on the back end. I want to put my words out there before I go. I think that's a pretty great thing.
That's not an easy discussion to have, especially at the age that he is. It's almost like one day you're going to trip over the threshold and, oh, look, there's death over there.
Easier for you, right? You're younger and you're like, oh, it's far away. For him, like you said, it's much closer. And for him to be able to discuss that, I appreciate that he has peace around that. Do we have any other questions from the box?
Now that we've established that this is really for the super fans, and I agree with that, do you think the super fans will enjoy it? And I think the point needs to be made, 1/8 to 1/4 of this covers kind of his Star Trek level of his career. It really veers off into other areas about life, pursuit of happiness, death, loneliness. There was some profound things about loneliness. Do you think the superfans will enjoy it, or do you think they might be disappointed because he doesn't get into all the trivia and the things that superfans usually like to hear about the Star Trek or whatever they're superfanning about?
I think there's different kinds of super fans. There are the fans that are only the fans of particular projects that somebody's involved with. But then there's the fans that want to understand on a mental level the person that they're appreciating so much. I think this film is definitely geared more toward the latter.
It's interesting, the super fanning. I think the box makes a great point. If you're going in there only thinking he's going to talk about A, meaning the Star Trek piece, he's not. This isn't a conference where that's it. And to his credit, that's what he's most well known for. And yet he didn't only talk about that. I appreciated that because I'm not a super fan, like I said. However, there was a whole chapter that was divided up in little chapters. And loneliness was a chapter, a little bit on his childhood. I felt he allowed the filmmakers to have access to his life and he was fully transparent. It would be so easy to say, I've only done this, therefore focus only on the good stuff. Because sometimes documentaries can feel like PR pieces or fluff pieces or look how great and wonderful I am, not I'm lonely. It really felt like he wanted to educate the person who was watching this about him, but also life as a whole. In my mind, right, he really kind of got into the woods, if you will, around a lot of issues around philosophy and space and his thoughts and things. It went so many different directions.
I find it interesting you mentioned the loneliness because it almost felt like he was affirming that people feel this existential loneliness, and he wanted to show them that they weren't alone in this.
That's exactly what it felt like to me. And that was a surprise, honestly. Rebecca, it is that time of the show. I have 5 Bill-loving moths over here. What do you think? 1 to 5.
I think 3 of them are going to be flying into the woods today.
Oof, okay.
This is a 2 moth movie for me.
Number 1 reason.
It felt inconsistent. It felt like it wanted to say something, but on the other hand, it would veer off into another direction. There wasn't enough focus, even within the chapters themselves. They definitely bridged them through comments and themes, but it just felt like I'm watching the first draft of the documentary, and I want to see the final drafts of this documentary. There's so much potential.
I've got the 5 space moths with Bill's name on them. I'm with you on this one, truly. I think it's a 2. I can't disagree with you. I think you're right. It felt incomplete. It felt very disjointed in the way that I would want to see. Like I said, a little bit more structure. It's interesting. When he would talk about things that I was interested in, he would only spend like 2 seconds on him. Like, oh, okay, go over here. Or he would show the clip of the different shows or the different things, and he really wouldn't say much about it.
It just felt like, oh, well, that's done. Here we go.
I think the heart was in it, meaning I think he was all in, which I appreciate. It wasn't like he dialed it in or it's like, oh, yeah, they keep bugging me, so I better do this. He put himself out there. I love the idea that the fans are trying to source something, meaning the movie and the documentary, of people that they really respect and want to hear. I wouldn't take it away. I think it's more of the logistic piece, how it was organized. And as you had said earlier, he would say something and he would almost say it 2 or 3 different ways. And it felt like, as you said, it didn't feel like a complete finished draft. Think it's worth a watch? What do you think?
I think if you're a Shatner superfan who wants to understand where he's coming from mentally, it's an interesting idea. What I would do is I would also cut out the parts where he's talking about some of his ethos, and I would string that into a different documentary.
Correct. That's what you were saying, right? The 2.
Yes.
I think it's worth a watch. I agree. I think, obviously, because it's such a limited engagement, it's going to be hard to find. But on Fandango, as you said, if you're a super fan, you want to understand, you want to hear about the man behind the roles, I think it's worth a watch. I'm glad we went to see it.
I am too, even if I didn't enjoy it as much as I thought I would.
Exactly. That would be my thoughts.
If you enjoyed our review on Just Call Me Bill, please like, which helps more viewers find our cinema community, and subscribe. It really helps us out. And you won't miss our upcoming reviews, and please share with your friends.
Rebecca, it is that time of the show to talk about who we are. Not sponsored by today.
Break my heart for 3 minutes. Let's go.
We are not sponsored by Priceline.com.
You tell me you couldn't negotiate a deal with Priceline? What kind of
thought you were-
Priceline negotiator are you?
Actually, I probably should have went to Bill Shatner and said, "Hey, your old company. He was one of their spokesmen." I thought, I figure we're doing the William Shatner documentary. Priceline loved him. He was their first spokesman from 1997, almost 20 years. He was their guy. I thought, okay, Priceline. He's going up to space. Priceline's all about travel. Space, the ultimate travel destination.
I thought you were going to say getting space from your relatives by going on vacation.
You don't know anything about that, so let's just not even go there with that. Do you know about Priceline? What do you know?
I remember they were kind of like the name your own price tool. I remember that, and then that was in Progressive too. But I remember that specifically for them, it was like very revolutionary at that time.
It was kind of crazy, actually. They began in 1997. The reality is you knew a world before Priceline even came into existence.
Not much of a world.
Well, yeah, you're a little kid. I don't think you were like over there going, I think I want to get away. I don't know. Maybe you were. Maybe you were going, But Jay Walker had this great, wonderful idea, and he said, I am going to start a company called Priceline.com. Online travel agency, again, looking for tickets, airline tickets, hotel reservation, all of those things. He wanted to put them together. And as you said, the name your own price.
Pretty snazzy.
I thought so, pretty cool. They own other things. They own kayak.com.
Oh, I vaguely remember them.
They also own booking.com.
I remember their booking.yeah slogan.
Oh, I don't even remember that. The kayak one, I'm like, okay. And they're headquartered in Amsterdam. Pretty fancy. But they are huge. They're huge, huge, huge. 200 countries and territories. 400 airlines they have partnerships with. And over 300,000 hotels. They are a big deal.
Yeah, a lot of hotels, eh?
I crack up because my favorite thing about them, this was hilarious. If you go on there and you're thinking, oh, remember William Shatner? And he did a lot of commercials that were actually pretty funny for them. I actually remember, I think the commercials more than I was thinking, oh yeah, let's do this whole name your price thing, which they stopped doing too. But the rumor is he said, oh yeah, I'll be your spokes guy. And apparently, new company, don't have any money. And they're like, well, we will pay you in stock.
Oh, that's smart, actually.
Well, it is, but it's not. Because the rumors are originally he made a $600 million profit. Bill Shatner. Just by, making jokes and, running around on camels and all this stuff. However, that number sounds fancy and you're like, ooh, he is like loaded. Priceline just made him a multimillionaire. But unfortunately, that's been disputed slightly, too, because other reports say, no, he only made a couple $100 on this deal.
Be curious to read those reports.
If they would call me back, I could ask them, and that would actually be the first question. I mean, it wouldn't even be, hey, you want to sponsor? His first question is, how much did you pay Bill Shatner, really?
Pay me more. Pay me more.
Exactly. But they won't sponsor, so how am I going to know?
Thanks, Priceline, for not bidding on hotels anymore and not sponsoring us. It's that time in the show where we want to hear from you. We love to see your comments on our videos, and especially your rating in the movie and why. Now let's talk about some of those cool comments we've been getting, Teresa.
First up, we have JJW77 commented on our 60-second review of Knox Goes Away. Here's what they had to say. Interesting and intriguing review.
Not bad for 60 seconds.
That's my thought, too. Wow, we're pretty good about this. That was a great movie.
I feel like if you have a chance to see this movie, go see it. If you liked The Killer by David Fincher, you're going to love this movie. It's a good little companion piece.
I really enjoyed this movie. I found it hilarious that it was acted by Michael Keaton as well as directed by Michael Keaton. Al Pacino shows up.
We even had a small guest star from She Came to Me, which I pointed out later.
Oh, yeah. But I think the hard part of this movie is we had a really hard time finding this movie, and we were looking for this.
Fun fact, this was the Box's birthday movie request, and we bent head over heels for this. We couldn't even see until a week after his birthday.
Correct. We were recording on the Box's birthday. Added another flap to the cardboard.
Feel free to comment and say happy birthday to the Box.
Yeah,
he does a lot for us.
Yeah. Give the Box some love out there, cinema community.
Next up, we have Matthew Roman 6807, who commented on our review of Cabrini. Oh, I think he finally posted his review. Thanks for the shout out. And yes, I just saw Cabrini 2 days ago. I give it a 4 1/2 out of 5. Tiny surface level review. It was engaging throughout the film as the story continuously brought new challenges to the main character. My grandma and I both fear there might be long, unnecessary, stretched out moments of dialogue. I'm with you there. But no, that was not the case. I was quite invested in the character's struggle and feats throughout the 2 hours or so. I think it was mentioned before in your review, but the music was delivered quite well and greatly supported the scenes. I know you really love the music in that movie.
I did. I crack up because Matthew's going and he's like, and my grandmother. And I'm like, I hope his grandmother's part of our cinema community. They both have some really good thoughts.
You're never too old to enjoy a good movie. I see a lot of elderly folks go to the movies less and less, and I'd really like to encourage you. There's still good movies out there for you.
Absolutely. What a great review. And please, 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 cinema community, if you have seen any of the movies we've seen, let us know what you think. Give us your rating. Tell us what you thought. And of course, if there's spoilers, spoiler alert, that always helps too. Finally, we have Joe Jetski, who commented on our 60-second review of Knox Goes Away. Here's what they had to say. I was able to catch this movie. Ooh, good job, Joe. I was worried because the trailers were not present in the theaters, but I was pleasantly surprised. It was a really good movie to see.
I can't argue with that. This movie is going to be a stealth release.
Yes, I agree. It's funny because we're saying, you can't find it. Joe Jetski found it. Okay, fine, Joe Jetski. Thank you for seeing it. Thank you for commenting. Nobody's going to believe us at all.
Everybody's going to think this is probably some movie that we've made up, but really, it's a movie that exists. Go see it.
Trailers are on YouTube. Go see the movie. Now it's time for some Hollywood news. Rebecca.
We got some pretty positive fun fluff today.
Ooh, fun fluff. Talk to me. Where are you reading your fun fluff from?
Our fun fluff today is from Deadline, as well as our other article. It's going to be a Deadline special day.
Wow.
We also want to give a shout out to the editorial team of Deadline. There's an article on their website. It details some of the promotions to a lot of our favorite authors that we've been seeing. So thank you guys. We love you.
Yay. All right. Let's talk fluff. What do you want to start with?
Well, I want to start with Patrick Heaps pointing out that there's a new trailer for Beetlejuice.
The juice is loose.
Oh, look at you. You're like, woo. I know. I'm super excited about Fall Guy. Plug for Fall Guy.
Anyone but him.
Shameless.
Very much. We did a review on Beetlejuice on one of our first shows on Cocoon Cast.
We're really trying to get into the seasonal spirit, so check out some of our Halloween videos if you're into something spooky. This is a short trailer. It clocks in at about 1:17.
Whoa. It's okay, but I think it's a teaser trailer though, correct?
They marketed this as a full-length trailer, and I was just like, ugh.
We saw that. I remember that was on YouTube. We saw that, and then we were seeing the Ghostbusters movie to review, and we saw it in the theaters.
I know they're trying to get these shorter trailers so people pay attention to them, and sometimes it will re-loop. In fact, Warner Brothers Pictures' upload of the trailer had 5 million views when I checked it about 10 o'clock this morning.
Holy cow.
People are excited. I was a little disappointed because I saw some promo pics earlier in the week, and they kind of took them from the trailers, hoping for something a little bit more woo. But hey, the Big Beetle is back, the ghost with the most, whatever you call him. He's going to be hitting theaters September 6th, so keep an eye out for our review when that hits.
It felt like a teaser trailer. And a minute trailer was like, I don't know. I wanted to see more, honestly.
I think it was more about getting the fans excited.
Yes.
And showing that, yes, we're going to capture the spirit of the original. Yes, we're going to do some of the same locations, so it doesn't feel like you're just wandering into a place that happens to be telling a Beetlejuice story.
I'm laughing. What did we just talk about? Michael Keaton in Knox Goes Away. He's an assassin, and he's back in Beetlejuice.
Say it enough times, I think he's going to show up.
Oh, wow. Here we go.
Boo.
Yeah. Ooh. All right. Any questions from the box?
With the movie coming out in September, do you think the teaser now and a longer trailer later is a good strategy, or do you think they should have done the full-length trailer now?
I like the fact that they're trying to keep this in the minds of the general public. That being said, I think less is more when it comes to movie marketing, so they should have saved that energy for a full-length trailer.
September doesn't feel far, but I know you and I were talking about it. It feels further away for you.
This feels further away for me, even though it is in September, partially because of the summer movie season. You're going to have these big, massive films coming out right after the other.
That's true. That's a great point. It would be easy for this one to be forgotten. So honestly, I think it's probably a good idea that they're doing even a teaser or a short trailer now. That way you're going, oh, so it's not like the first time you see it.
That's fair. For a lot of the general movie-going public, I imagine this is the first time they're hearing about this.
Rebecca, what else is going on out there?
Well, this article blew up over everywhere. I looked on Variety. It was there. I looked on The Hollywood Reporter. It was there. But we're going to be crediting Melanie Goodfellow and Andreas Weissman for Deadline for this article.
Wow, this is big stuff.
This is big stuff. The Cannes Film Festival is starting to figure out who's going to be playing what night and when.
Ooh, what have you found out so far?
The Furiosa film, aka the Mad Max Fury Road prequel, will be playing out of competition.
Wow, you've been excited though. We've seen this trailer a lot.
I am vibrating with excitement for this one.
Wow. But as you said, it's everywhere.
It's everywhere, so I know I'm not the only one.
And I think they're promoting it pretty heavily at this point.
It's interesting to me because the last Mad Max film, Fury Road, which is the film that follows this in terms of story order, was also released at Cannes. And they had huge success with that.
Wow.
That was the moment people started to take this film seriously. It was also screened out of competition, as will this film.
I'm cracking up because I'm like, you're like, it's here, it's here, it's here. I'm like, well, I've seen a couple of the trailers. I've read a little bit about it. Tell our cinema community, what do they need to know about this? Because you're geeking out over here and you're like, oh, I know this and this and this. What do they need to hear? What do they need to know?
For those of our cinema community who don't know what out of competition means, it means that this film is just going to be kind of, hey, let's show this film here because it's going to get a lot of buzz. You're not necessarily going to be entered for all these awards and stuff that the film festival is known for. It's also premiering ahead of the French release date, which is pretty close to the U.S. release date. In fact, it's about 2-day difference.
What day is that? Do you know? Or
so the film will be premiering on May 15th. That's the official red carpet premiere and
wow,
everything.
That's coming up.
The French release date is May 22nd. The U.S. will be getting it in May 24th.
Oh, wow. Wow. All right. You're excited.
I'm happy to see George getting respect from the filmmaking community as a serious director. The last time he was here at Cannes was for 3,000 Years of Longing. It's a seriously underrated film in his repertoire. I encourage our cinema community to watch it.
Do we have any questions from the box?
Do you think it's a good strategy to screen this at Cannes out of competition? And do you think other films should be doing that?
I think it depends on how much the studio believes in the film. Some films are kind of shopped at these awards festivals to kind of create this buzz that makes people take the films more seriously. That being said, I think when they're out of competition, it says, we believe in our film enough to know that your response doesn't matter. We're going to go for it.
Thanks for joining us this week. We're always excited to create experiences to bring our cinema community together.
Next week, we are doing a special show about one of our 5 Moth-rated movies. The only hint you're going to get is that it's from 2010.
Ooh, Moth masterpieces coming our way. Please remember to like, subscribe, and to share our channel.
If you enjoyed this show, you might check out last week where we talked about the winners and losers in the 2024 Oscars. And on our Movies and More weekly show, we reviewed Arthur the King.
Remember, cinema community movies are better together. Thanks for watching. See you in the next review.